Calling to order the March 1st, 2022 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission. This meeting is broadcast on CTN Cable Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. For those of you who have joined finally via the broadcast or through Zoom, thank you for your patience. It has been challenging to get the technology to work here this evening, so I sincerely appreciate your patience with that. Ms. DeLeo, can you help with the roll call, which is item number 2?
I can, thank you. Chair Mills, are you here?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibb Randall?
Here.
Commissioner Sauvé?
Here.
Commissioner Abrams is absent. Commissioner Hammerschmidt?
Here.
Commissioner Dish is not present. Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
And Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Thank you, we have a quorum.
Very good. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Can I have a commissioner move the agenda? Moved by Commissioner Lee, seconded by Commissioner, why can I not think of your name right? Sauvé. Sorry. Any discussion of the agenda? All in favor, please raise a hand or say yes. That is all of the hands. The motion carries. Item number 4 are the minutes of the previous meeting. This is from the February 15th, 2022 meeting. Can I have a commissioner move those? Moved by Commissioner Hammerschmidt, seconded by Commissioner Gibb Randall. Any discussion of the minutes? Commissioner Lee.
Just really quick, I couldn't actually access the minutes. I checked on the agenda, but not to, so I don't have any comments because I tried to review and it didn't come up. So just want to throw that. Maybe I chose like an older agenda or something, but I wasn't able to review it. So.
Well, would we like to postpone that? It seems like there might have been some problems with the citation or the kind of link. So would you like to move to postpone approval of the minutes until the next meeting when we can get the link sorted?
Yes, I would like to postpone.
All right, moved by Commissioner Lee, seconded by Commissioner Clark. Any discussion of postponement? All in favor of postponement, please raise a hand or say yes. That is all of the hands. Next up are the reports from City Administration, City Council, the Planning Office, Planning Commissioner officers and committees, and the written communications. We have a bunch in our packet that were sent throughout the day today. Commissioner Dish is not here to provide City Council comments. Do you have anything from the Planning Manager?
I do not, and not because I'm not prepared. Officially, there is no report.
We would not think it was because you were not prepared. Okay. Any Planning Commission officers or committee liaisons have anything to report? I just wanted to let you know that last week the Ordinance Revisions Committee did meet, and Mr. Leonard shared kind of our past work plan, in addition to kind of everything that we've brought up recently and some work that he's pulled together from A20, and I expect that he's going to bring all of that together to a future meeting so we can think about what is on our work plan, because we've accomplished a bunch in terms of walking through ordinances. Go ahead, Commissioner Gibb Randall.
I actually have something from Environmental Commission where we talked at length about the proposed resolution for connecting University of Michigan and City of Ann Arbor with the housing. There was substantial editing from the Energy Commission, and there were lots of comments from Environmental Commission too. And so I guess just so that this body is aware that that's kind of churning through the system, and that at some point it'll come to us as well. So I think it's shifting and changing as it goes along. So the version that we saw is probably, moot at this point, but just so you all are aware that's been on several people's agendas.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Any other committee liaisons? All right. Next is item 6, the public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda, so we will have a separate public hearing for the amendments to the Unified Development Code. We'll first call on folks who are present in council chambers to address the Planning Commission, and then to remote participants. And if you're watching us and want to dial in and haven't already done so, the call-in number is 877-853-5247, and our meeting ID is 977-6634-1226. If you've dialed in by phone, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you'd like to provide a public comment. And if you've joined through the Zoom link, you can just press the raised hand button that's on the center bottom of your screen. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak once Ms. DeLeo has promoted you that way. She'll call on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number or by your Zoom name if you've joined that way. Please move to a quiet area and mute any background sounds. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Does anyone in the audience like to provide public comment now? All right. Ms. DeLeo, is there anyone indicating that they'd like to provide a public comment during this general time, not to the UDC amendments, but to any other items?
We do have 2 hands raised for call-in listeners.
Okay.
Caller ending in 534, you have 3 minutes, or please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission about an item not on the agenda.
Thank you. This is Tom Stolberg. I'm calling from Lowertown tonight in Ann Arbor. Since I've asked before for information about TC1, knowing who is going to be the recipients of the wealth that the city is bestowing upon them with the city-initiated rezoning, and also council members asked in a resolution for information on the owners as well as on evaluation to know how much the city is gifting landowners. That resolution was defeated. Hopefully, we can still get some information before City Council votes on this from the city. City does have information. We should know what you know. But given I've called for that, I think it's only fair for me to say that later on we're going to be talking about R2 zoning, and that I will financially benefit from if what is proposed passes or something similar. So I think it's only fair if I'm calling for other people to be disclosed that I disclose myself. If I was a commissioner, I'd have to recuse myself. I presume Commissioner Lee will be recusing himself as his company also stands to benefit from that ordinance revision. So I won't make any comments on that. That's later for the public hearing in terms of any details. But I do hope that we continue to strive for transparency, knowing that when we make zoning changes, there are people who will be enriched overnight. They don't have to build anything. Their property is worth more the day after the zoning law passes. They can sell it to somebody else, make a profit. They can borrow on increased wealth of the property. So the city is bestowing a financial benefit upon people. I'm not going to say that that's good or bad. I'm going to say it's a fact. And we can all make our decisions, at least knowing the facts, openly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more. I apologize. We have one more caller ending in 588. Please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
To unmute yourself, you can press *6.
There, they've done it.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Owen Franks, and I am an attorney at Benjamin B. Joe PLC in Ann Arbor, 334 East Washington Street. First, I would like to thank you for your time and service to the community. We are of the belief that the proposed amendments to the UDC regarding marijuana license types and number of licenses per... per lot would be helpful to the
So,
city
yeah,
this is,
and local.
sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, this is an opportunity to talk about anything that's not for a public hearing, and we'll have a separate public hearing specifically on the ordinance changes. So if there's anything that's not specifically about the ordinance amendment, now's a good time to talk. Otherwise, we'll get to that item of business in just a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. My apologies. I will wait until then.
All right, super.
All right.
If there's anyone else that's joined that would like to provide a public comment on an item that's not listed, so that's the changes to the UDC that includes allowing religious assembly in M1, changes to the marijuana license types, R2A, curb cuts and street planting frontage, and modifying street tree planting requirements. Anything else is fair game now. You can press *9 or use the raise hand feature.
Doesn't seem we have anyone on Zoom or call in.
Okay, very good. We'll move on then to item number 7, which is the public hearings that are scheduled for the next business meeting. Ms. DeLeo, do you have those? I can pull them up from online too.
Thank you. I do not have them handy.
All right. Doo-doo-doo. Let's see. The next public hearing, which is on Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 7 p.m., we'll be hearing 2 petitions. The Ann Arbor Chinese Church expansion for City Planning Commission approval. This is a proposal to expand the existing church at 1750 Duvarin Road. And the second item is Maple Cove 2 for City Planning Commission approval. This is a proposal to construct a 70-unit apartment complex across 3 buildings, and this is at, this is on North Miller Road and, North Maple Road and Miller Road. Okay. We are on to item 8A then. These are the amendments to Chapter 55 of the Unified Development Code. Because of the technical difficulties, and we were concerned that that might have thwarted any people who were trying to participate, my intention is that we will postpone the actual vote on this to make sure that anyone who wants to participate can join in. With that in mind, we typically start our petitions with a staff presentation. And Ms. DeLeo, in terms of if we can generally keep it brief,
Yes.
since this will come back for us all in the future. Does that sound good?
Sure.
And then we'll open it up for the public hearing on this. So for those who have joined, we're getting to that very shortly.
All right. Okay. I will give it one attempt to screen share, and then we'll just call it a night. All right, so, screen share. Let's screen share these slides, share that.
I was going to say, folks at home may be able to see it better than us.
All right. Think we're cooking with gas.
Get
Okay.
out your glasses, folks.
All right. Okay. Presented before you tonight are some amendments to Chapter 55, which is the Unified Development Code. There are 5. I tried to format it so that you can act on them as a group or individually. For example, if you would like to, not tonight, but if you would like to pass 3 or 4 of them, but postpone 1 or 2, I did try to do that in that format. But for efficiency, it is one staff report. But there are 5 amendments. The first one is to Table 515-1, which is the primary use table. I should mention that in the packet, and all the planning commissioners have been provided with the full ordinance of proposed amendments. The presentation just calls out, just zooms right into what skips all of the not changes. So So the First Amendment is to the table in 515-1, which are the primary uses. Primary uses are those that are permitted in the district. No further questions asked. They are appropriate everywhere in that zoning district. And we, by request, we are considering a proposed amendment to allow religious assembly uses in the M1 district. You'll notice the table combines M1 and M1A, so that's why there is a P parentheses excluding M1A in this box. Changes were not advertised to the M1A district. I mentioned this was by request. Folks are allowed to petition for ordinance amendments. This was considered by the Ordinance Revisions Committee, and there are other assembly type uses that are permitted in the M1 district, and the Ordinance Revisions Committee felt that this was a worthwhile amendment. It was appropriate. They recommended approval. As you know, that is not binding, but that is the amendment before the Planning Commission. The next amendment is to section 516.3G, which is marijuana facilities. We're doing three things here. We are doing two substantive changes and then one just a reorganization. The substantive changes are to delete paragraphs D, which is number of state marijuana licenses per lot, and delete paragraph E, which is types of facilities on a lot. This slide shows that the table and the lists being deleted. What you can see from the table that certain districts are allowed certain number of licenses per lot. What we have found, and as the state continues to evolve its regulations, rules and regulations, is they have specific to growers, and this is just an example, but specific to growers, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but say they categorize large growers as 1,000 plants. And what they have now done is they are not issuing single businesses a 2,000 plant license. What they are doing is they're issuing the same business 2 licenses, 1,000 and 1,000. Here in Ann Arbor, what that means is a large grower couldn't do that because we, in some districts, because we would only allow 1 license in the district. Now that our marijuana facility regulations are in place, the landscape has sort of settled. It is staff's opinion that we don't need these licensing restrictions per district. We don't anticipate a mad rush or really anything changing. So therefore, this is just a piece of regulation that is probably unnecessary and could prove to be in conflict with state procedures. The other paragraph E is types of facilities per lot. You may recall when developing the regulations, we were very conservative. And we did not want concentrations, we did not want things bundled, everything should be spread out. Again, now that things have shaken out, we don't think it has not been an issue, it's not going to be an issue to allow different or multiple facilities on a single lot. And also, the way it is listed, it can be vague, and code shouldn't be vague. So we are proposing to, again, delete this paragraph. Then, for reorganization, we've flipped the format without changing any of the rest of the stuff. The old layout focused on the standards. And you can see here, this is the layout and the headings, and each of the standards is listed there. We're just reorganizing and flipping it to organize it based on facility. So you can more easily find the additional use-specific standards for the specific, what you're looking for, provisioning center or micro-business or designated consumption facility. But we haven't changed any of the content. No numbers have changed, no additional information or lack of information. The third amendment is to table 517-2, two-family residential zoning district dimensions. Specifically, the R2A district, we are proposing to reduce the minimum lot area from 8,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet, reduce the minimum lot area per dwelling unit from 4,250 square feet to 2,500 square feet, and the minimum lot width from 60 to 40 feet. This is the one topic I have a little bit more background on. The R2A district is intended to provide the residential, basically higher density, single-family density with a single-family feel. But its minimum lot area and lot area per dwelling unit goes along with that, has come up, and it's now more in line with some of our lower density single-family districts. So we are proposing to have it match the R1D district, which is a higher density single-family district. And so the dimensional standards we are proposing to match R1D. It would still allow 2 dwelling units on that lot, but the physical characteristics would then match the R1D. This is a map of where you'll find R2A zoning currently. You'll see that it's the bulk of it is in the Water Hill neighborhood, also the Old West Side. There's a little bit in the Burns Park area south of campus, and some pockets on Broadway, Pontiac Trail, right across over that way. Current standards of the R2A district with the 8,500 square foot lot size and 60-foot lot minimum, the majority of lots do not comply. The yellow is compliant, but the blue is non-compliant, also known as non-conforming. With the proposed amendments, we flip. And the yellow is compliant. So the yellow proportions on the left is minimum lot width. Those would be the ones that conform to the minimum lot area, width. On the right side is lot size. And so the yellow would be what would conform, and the blue is what would remain non-conforming. Next one. Okay. I'm happy to, I anticipate that maybe the most questions will come up about this one, so I'm happy to answer any questions at the conclusion. But those are our proposed amendments regarding R2A district. And then the fourth amendment is to section 52010B, trees required with site plan developments. The track changes is shown on the screen. What we're going to do, proposing to do, is eliminate the width of the curb cut from the linear calculation. Right now it says 1 street tree shall be provided for every 45 linear feet, and the change is 1 street tree provided for every 45 linear feet minus the width of the curb cut. On larger lots, it's not really a big deal to count the curb cut, but on a very small lot, you might require a street tree, but the curb cut takes up so much width, the tree will not thrive or survive. Also, 2 trees, or more likely 2 trees might be required, but really there's only space for 1 because half of the lot is the curb cut. And we are also proposing to eliminate the references to street tree escrow. The escrow is money that is collected from developer, but they are still supposed to plant the trees. And then, so we collect the money, they plant the trees. 3 years later, we return the money. We are entitled, if they don't plant the trees, to keep the escrow money and then use it to plant trees. The escrow formula doesn't actually cover the cost of planting trees. But the more important part is this is a lot of paperwork. This is a lot of money being tied up for little gain, when we also still have our regular security. I think most people would call it posting a bond or a performance bond. But when you go to finish your project, it is legitimate that it might be outside of the planting season. You might not be able to plant a tree in February or plant grass, so forth. So you can post a bond and say, as soon as the planting season comes up, I'll plant a tree. If you do both of those things, it's also fairly redundant and just kind of seems pointless. So it seems more efficient and a better use of everyone's resources to eliminate the street tree escrow. And if the trees cannot be planted for some reason, we can do it through our regular performance bonds that are already required. We are also proposing to add headings to this section to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And then finally, the fifth amendment is to section 530.1, landscape modifications. The bulk of the change is regarding adding street trees as an eligible modification. If you follow the current format, what we're doing is on the left. The sentence says flexibility in the application of landscaping or screening requirements and lists some sections. And so we are inserting one more section into this. But with our reorganized layout, it's going to look like the right. Adding a title, listing the sections with their titles, list form. But you can see here, again, the only real substantive change is adding the street trees. And then for all the proposed layouts, the current layout is as on the right. We've got the heading and then the sentence that says which sections you can change. And then it's got A and B. A is standards of approval, and buried in 2A are the 7 conditions that are associated with modifications. The proposed layout change would just list them a little bit more logically. Section A would be, these are the sections you can modify. Section B, this is the required conditions in order to be approved. C is standards of approval, and D is the approval procedures. I feel that a chunk is missing, so I'm going to stop sharing this. And I'm going to smoothly transition to this. Go back, again, smooth as silk. Screen sharing over here. All right. I do fear that this may become slightly small, but it will help prompt nonetheless. In this landscape modification section, I will be fairly brief, but there are 7, now proposed to be 8, reasons why you can have a landscape modification. The first one is regarding topography or elevation of the site, and we are proposing to A, move it onto the list by itself, but then B, rewording it to, instead of talking about topographic features, just say when the topography or the elevation of the site relative to another site makes the screening not effective, that's a legit reason to modify. It is another reason that when existing vegetation and landscaping are located, that more would be detrimental. Proposing to rephrase this to try to be a little more straightforward and talking about when the planting or installing the required landscape materials would be more detrimental than the benefits of the additional screening. That is also a condition that can be considered. There is a condition that talks about use of bioretention areas, native and prairie plantings, structural amenities, or xeriscaping. And we are proposing to change that. I don't believe we've ever used those reasons to grant a landscape modification, but our experience is increasingly showing that a reason that we should be granting a landscape modification is when the soil conditions underlying the site prevent the strict application of the requirements. For example, you may require a bioretention swale for infiltration, but that should not go right on top of contaminated soils. And so strict application is at odds with each other. This is a reason why a modification might be appropriate. We are proposing to eliminate the planned project reasoning because we don't have planned projects anymore. And then we are adding the description of why you might want to consider a modification to street trees. We've made them eligible in a previous amendment, and now this is saying that planting a new street tree, if it's prevented by an existing and unmovable obstruction, impediment, public infrastructure, and examples, fire hydrants, overhead utility lines, poles, traffic control devices, transit shelters. If those are blocking the planting of a street tree, this might be a landscape, this can be considered for a landscape modification. So those are the 5 amendments that we are proposing. We are recommending approval of them all. I feel like I whipped through them. That probably took longer than I thought, but happy to answer any questions. do any follow-up that might be needed when this comes back. And with that, I will turn it over either to the commission or the public hearing.
Next up is the public hearing. So as before, let me start by saying this is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the proposed changes to Chapter 55 of the Unified Development Code. As before, we'll first start with any folks who have joined us here in council chambers and then move to remote participants. Again, if you're watching us and need to dial in now, the call-in number is 877-853-5247, and our meeting ID is 977-6634-1226. If you've dialed in, you can press *9 to indicate that you'd like to provide a public comment. If you have joined through the Zoom link, you can use the raised hand feature. Ms. DeLeo will call on those who have indicated their interest in speaking, calling on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number or by the name you've entered through Zoom. Please move to a quiet area and mute any background sounds, including television, so that we can hear you clearly. Whether you're participating in person or remotely, please provide your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Would you like to provide public comment during the public hearing?
One question. So this
Sure.
is on any of them?
This is on any of them, any of the 5.
May I defer?
Sure, absolutely. Any remote participants?
We do have one raised hand, caller ending 588. Please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to speak to the Planning Commission about these proposed amendments. Okay.
Hello, members of the Planning Commission. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Oh, okay. Well, hello again. My name is Owen Franks, and I'm an attorney at Benjamin D. Joe PLC in Ann Arbor. We're located at 334 East Washington Street, and I'd like to thank you for your time and service to the community. I just want to start by saying that the proposed amendments to the UDC regarding marijuana license types and the number of licenses per lot would help the city and local licensees. And as it's currently worded, the code sections at issue seem to be pretty vague and open to interpretation. And we are of the belief that appropriate amendments to the UDC would allow for some more clear guidance under the code and mimic what the state guidelines currently allow for. Now, as previously mentioned at the start of this call, these amendments would allow for any number of marijuana facilities on a single lot, as well as allowing for multiple of the same kinds of marijuana license types on one lot. However, these amendments would still leave open the question of how many different types of licenses a licensee may have at a single location. And we believe that in addition to the proposals currently being considered, the code should also be amended to be clear that any number of marijuana license types on a single lot are permissible, or at a minimum, to allow for more combinations of types of licenses on a single lot. We think that allowing for any number of licenses on a lot, subject to the obvious zoning restrictions, and allowing for any mix of types of licenses on a single lot should be considered by the commission for simplification and as well as updating, best practices within the city. And it would also mimic what the state guidelines currently allow for. Essentially, to try and simplify it the best that I can, we are respectfully requesting the commission to consider that marijuana licensees in the city of Ann Arbor have the ability to stack licenses and the ability to have different types of licenses on the same land. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We have one more, unless you changed your mind.
Yeah, or go ahead. I'll go after the comment.
We have one more caller that has raised their hand. caller with phone number ending 534. You have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Hello again, this is Tom Stolberg calling from Lower Town in Ann Arbor. Some of you may know, but not everybody listening may know, one of my hats that I wear is a property manager, and I'm a part owner in some of those properties and manage properties for other people that I don't have ownership interest in. Under both categories, we have some R2A zone properties. So I will be a beneficiary of these changes. A couple questions I have for you, which I know you don't have to directly answer, but it'd be helpful if you were to describe what notice was given for these changes and who received notice. For your next meeting, who might receive notice as well. And again, when it goes to council, who will get notice of these changes. There was concern for the ADU ordinance revisions about lack of direct notice to the 20,000 impacted residences. That was brought up at a prior city council meeting a couple years back, and city council turned it down because they felt that better public notice and engagement was important. A couple years went by, and instead of getting more public education and notice, just a new council said, go ahead. People asked for, at a minimum, a postcard just to go out to those 20,000 impacted residents so they would have direct notice. And I believe it's appropriate to err on the side of giving notice more rather than less. So I hope you can take that into consideration and give better notice on these changes. And I think it would help the public to compare, given the new ADU ordinances that have affected, the ADU ordinance revisions effectively eliminated single-family zoning. The name is kept, the label is kept for R1, et cetera, but 2 habitable dwelling units are allowed on every residential zone lot except for mobile home. I believe that's R6. So I think it's worth comparing what the ADU would be to duplex. There are some differences that I know, but the public would be helped if you could cover that. Personally, I like duplexes. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for owner occupancy by financing it with renting out one unit and occupying the other unit that you buy as the 2. Hopefully those opportunities will be increased by an increased number of duplexes, which hopefully this is intended to do, not just bring in to conformance some non-conforming lots, but add additional duplex capability, additional units to the housing stock. So I think that would be beneficial. Again, I want to put the disclaimer out that I would be one of the beneficiaries financially of these changes. The only question from my group, my investment group, is do we act, if these should pass at Planning Commission and subsequently council, do we act on these new rules or do we wait until we get 4 units per lot, which some people are advocating? So you might want to address that.
3 minutes has elapsed.
Thank you.
Please wrap it up. Thank you.
I'm done. Thanks. Bye.
All right.
If there's any other callers who have joined via phone or Zoom that would like to provide a public comment during the public hearing, you can press *9 on your phone or use the raised hand feature.
There are no additional callers on calling or Zooming.
Okay. If you'd like to. Go ahead.
Hi, Jeff Benko, 213 West Madison. Concerning the marijuana amendment, I have 2 comments. If the overall goal was to allow a greater concentration of marijuana businesses in areas where they are most appropriate, I think there would be a lot of support for this. So in commercial or industrial areas far from residents, it would make sense to allow the higher density of these businesses. But do these changes run counter to the goals of the 600-foot separation portion of that? Wouldn't it be better and more equitable to remove the 600-foot separation, at least in these areas? Is it equitable to have 2 lots next to each other and grant more licenses to the first lot than deny the neighboring lot from any of these businesses due to the barrier? Is this proposal the best course of action? And then for other zones that have residential areas nearby, I believe the status quo is best. These limits will mitigate the impact these businesses have on the neighborhood. I would like to ask you to remember that most of the recreational facilities did not go through the current marijuana approval process. They were grandfathered in and the immediate neighborhoods were not involved. Why further remove protections for these neighborhoods? In addition, Planning Commission has commented, at least on one of these sites, that the proposed changes would not have any immediate impact due to other current limitations that are existing. Then why expand them for these sites if there is no need and would have no impact? Keep the status quo and make changes due to a need and cause beneficial change, at that time. So I ask, is this amendment the best course of action forward? The second comment I have is about the local neighborhood involvement in this process. While other amendments are in general and have a diffuse impact, amendments affecting special use exemption businesses have a high impact but limited region. Like the earlier caller, it could be practical to provide additional communication to these areas that when plans are under consideration and get their involvement, at earlier stages. Or if you have other means for interested parties to stay informed, I'd be grateful to hear of them. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. No other indication has come online, has it? Mr. Leo?
Oh, yes. We have, okay, group help. The caller ending in 534 has a hand raised, but we've already done that one, right? Okay. So no, I forgot to lower the hand. There are no additional ones.
Okay.
New ones.
All right, very good. I'll close the public hearing and read the motion. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the amendments to Chapter 55 Unified Development Code as proposed and generally described as Table 5.15-1 to allow religious assembly use in the M1 district, Section 5.16.3.g to eliminate marijuana license type and numbers of licenses per lot, as well as to reorganize for clarity. Table 5.17-2 to decrease the minimum lot size, minimum lot area per dwelling unit, and minimum lot width in the R2A district. Section 5.20.10 to exclude curb cuts from street tree planting frontage calculations and remove references to street tree escrow. And Section 5.30.1 to add eligibility and conditions to modify street tree planting requirements by landscape modifications, as well as clarifications and reorganization of that section. Can I have a commissioner move this? Moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Weich. Guys, I don't know what my brain is not working tonight. I think I need caffeine or something.
I hear you.
Again, I do think that we should wrap this up, but if there are any questions that people have for clarification or additional information that people would like staff to bring before we see this next time, I think that might be a good thing to collect. Go ahead, Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Just one little thing on the R2A. I'm just curious, and don't spend a lot of time trying to get this data, but when, you have the pie charts and like what would change and be conforming, I'm just curious, like what if there's a way to sort of articulate, like, what is the rest of it? Like, I saw some of the public comment that was like, oh, can we, why isn't this setback the same as, or like, why isn't it 10 feet? Why is it 20 feet? Is there any little thing that's changed that would make more of them conforming? Am I making sense? Like, what are those little slices once we make these changes? And is there anything else, like if we did make the minimum lot size smaller, like would we capture more of it to make more of them conforming? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So.
I'm just curious what's left over, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
what are the, what are those yes, thank you. What are the non-conforming characteristics after we would apply these proposals? I guess my brain doesn't work either.
We can't see that. Yeah, we can't see that, and so.
Oh, yeah, now, you don't have to right now. I don't need to know right now.
No, but bear with me, words, not good.
No, got it.
They are split, I think, for highlighting, but they add up to 100. The only measurement, so I know you can't see it, but you can see the yellow and the blue.
Yeah.
From there. So the, currently, with the 60-foot minimum lot width, 39% comply with that 60 feet or greater. And 61% are not, don't comply, are non-conforming. They are less than 60 feet. So it adds up to 100. So there's no like missing piece.
No, I know.
Oh.
So like if we have the existing and then we have the like proposed, right? So like
to
it
the
was
next
one of the next charts where the like the yellow, I think it's much smaller, or the blue. My question is like.
Oh, how low do you have to go?
What is that blue, like,
How do you eat away at the blue?
there, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Is there a theme?
So, yeah, so
Yes.
you know.
Is there a common theme that knits a bunch of them together, or is it a bunch of disparate, random things?
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, yes.
Then I'll just
Thanks,
leave
guys.
you with, because you can't see, but going down to 40 feet, from 60 to 40, will go from 31% to 13. So just, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then for the lot area, going to 27% non-conforming, but 73%. But I hear, yes, on it.
I think we all understand, okay.
Quantification of what remains in the blue pie wedges.
Yes.
Other questions or clarification that might be helpful for when we discuss this again? Go ahead, Commissioner Weich.
Just on the marijuana licenses, if one of the comment I was following, and then I got a comment, and now I'm confused, and I'm not sure if it was just because of how the attorney talked about it, but it appeared that we were going to resolve the issue of the commenter. Is that correct?
Yes, that
Okay.
was my interpretation. He was, my opinion was as if he only was aware that we were deleting the table with
Right.
number of licenses per lot, but we also were deleting the other paragraph that regulated the types of licenses per
Okay,
lot.
because I got confused, because I was like,
Yeah.
everything you're asking for is in there,
Yeah.
but you're commenting as if it's not in there, so maybe it's not in there, and
Yeah.
you understand it better than I did. Okay, so that was the first one, thank you. The second question, which I tried to read everything, and it's probably there, and I just missed it, are we changing the total number of licensable marijuana facilities within the city from 28?
No,
Okay, so it will still be 28, it's just the type of license that they are obtaining from the state that will allow them to move from just a distributor to a grower, but then be in the same lot space where that previously had to be in different lot spaces.
right.
Okay, great. Then if that is true, and it remains true, then I'm good
Yeah.
on that, and that one seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
For the clarification of anyone, so the restriction of 28 maximum provisioning centers / retailers remains. The cap for 28 designated consumption facilities remains. And the requirement for 600 feet separation between certain facilities, one specific is provisioning center retailers, remains. And the provisions for 1,000-foot separation from K-12 schools remains. The only things that are changing is you can have more than one license on a lot, but you have to be eligible in the first place. But you can have more than one, and if you have more than one, they now can be multiples of the same. They don't have to be different.
I have a follow-up question on that. And I don't think it has to be done now. For some of the other types, so like just delivery facilities, grow facilities, my understanding or my recollection is that there's not caps on the total number.
There are not.
Okay. So this could have an impact on that. The other question, and I think that this kind of comes to one of the other commenters' comments, is about both kind of dispensaries and consumption facilities. largely when we put those in place, or when those special exception uses were granted, my recollection is that there's, in almost all situations, a cap on the square footage for that particular facility. And I'm curious, well, first of all, a dispensary, I think that's what it's called, right? Dispensaries can't, because of the separation between individual dispensaries, those ones could not stack. Is that fair?
That is fair. Yeah, you can't, you can't be 600 feet apart and stacked. So that is, remains. That's a long way
And
for saying yes.
And any expansion they would still be capped by the square footage limitation in the special exception use?
Yes, most, if not all. I know that most are very specific. They're in this tenant space, or they are this amount of square feet. So if the one provisioning center wanted to expand, they most likely, it would depend on the specific conditions, but most likely they'll need to come back and amend their special exception use.
And if something has been approved, if a special exception use has been approved for a provisioning center, and maybe a grow facility is not the right example, but like the micro business, that's one of the categories, or kind of a secure transport thing was not envisioned, it's going to take some, space in a building,
Yeah.
and it was not envisioned at the time of that special exception use, they would have to come back and apply for a separate approval for that, is that right?
Well, they would need to follow whatever rules are there.
Okay.
So off the top of my head, if there was a provisioning center, and they wanted now to take advantage and have an upstairs, downstairs provisioning center and designated consumption facility. The designated consumption facility needs a special exception use. So they're gonna have to get that approval, go through the process for that. But if they wanted, for some reason, to be the provisioning center on the bottom, and they've already got that approval, and they wanted a use upstairs that was permitted primary use, they wouldn't need to amend the special exception use. This would allow them to have, so 2 licenses would be on the same lot, but each facility would follow the regulations of that district.
Got it. So I'm just looking at the table, like a secure transporter, what you're saying is that because that is a permitted use in C2B, C3, and M1 and M1A, it's a P on the table.
Yeah.
If they wanted to do that right now, and there's already, let's say, a dispensary on that place, right now, because of the stacking, that may not be allowed, or there would be limitations on that.
Yeah.
But this would say, you could come back and add that as long as you're in those
As long
districts.
as it was permitted anyway, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you for those clarifications. Other questions or clarifications? Okay, good.
Do you want to postpone it to a date certain?
I think so, although do you have, well, we know that there are 2 things on our next agenda, but I think postponing it to the next meeting seems reasonable, having 3. Okay, would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner White is making a motion.
I move that we postpone this vote until our next meeting, which is
March 15th.
March 15th. Okay.
Seconded by Commissioner Sauvé. Any discussion of the postponement? All in favor of postponement, please raise a hand. All of the hands. The motion carries. Thank you. All right. We have nothing under item 9, other business. So we're on to item 10, which is our last opportunity for public comment. This is for an opportunity to speak for any issue for up to 3 minutes. Again, we'll first call on those who are present here and then move to remote participants. To speak, if you're listening in remotely, you can dial 877-853-5247 and then enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. If you've dialed in by phone, you can press star 9 on your phone. You can use the raised hand feature of viewing through the web link. Either way, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments.
Jeff Benko, 213 West Madison. I just want to say thank you to all the commissioners and city planner, Brent Leonard. All the communications through him has been very responsive, and it's at any rate, I would say that you guys are a real class act and do very well managing these difficult scenarios. So thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you, and thanks for your patience tonight, waiting us out here.
Yes.
Seriously. Any others that have indicated through Zoom that they would like to speak?
No.
Again, if you've joined, *9 to raise your hand, or you can use the raised hand feature. All right. Item 11 is commission proposed business. Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Oh, there we go. Hey, just to be perfectly clear, I plan to recuse myself from the vote with respect to the M1 Religious Assembly and the R2A, just to err on the side of caution of things. So I don't have any actual or current knowledge that Oxford owns R2A, but I just want to be safe. I know that we manage 1,000 units. So to be perfectly clear, and I'll bring this up again at the next vote, but I just wanted to let you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Weich.
Wondering about some of the comments that we got regarding parking maximums and how we would bring that to an agenda. So I think that's my first question is, what's your preference as chair to have that conversation? Should that go through ORC? Should I work with staff to bring a motion to the whole planning commission for consideration and debate? Do you have a preference for that conversation?
So I would suggest that typically ordinance amendments start in ORC, and one of the key limitations is often there's only so many staff. So this is why we have our work plan prioritizing kind of what's next. And this particular issue came up as one of the top things that we thought that we would add to the work plan. So the prioritization process is the next thing. What I would also say, and we talked about this a little bit at ORC, is that there's more things on our work plan than we know that staff can handle, that the ORC can handle, that we honestly can take on. And so if there are issues that others, committees, if there's something that's an energy commission thing, we put that out there. There have also been, like the lighting ordinance, I would say, citizen-initiated rezonings, and responding to language is a little bit easier, though it takes still putting the polish on how does it fit with the UDC. So the next plan for the work plan discussion is, I think, can you help me remember what we discussed? What is it? Are we discussing it at our working session? Is that what we talked about?
Yeah, we're going to discuss at work session, but we're also bringing a first round of parking or amendments to the commission for vote. Maximums is not part of it, but can be part of that discussion as well. So I think there are two kind of opportunities, both in work plan and with the first round of ordinance changes coming to a vote, that we can have both of those discussions.
And can I ask a clarifying question? And would that be a citywide maximum, or is it just within specific zoning areas?
That's what's up for discussion.
Okay, all right.
And we can, yes, yeah. And so again, that's next week that we thought we would look at the work plan.
Okay, so we're having our work plan meeting next week. That's the full commission, not just the sub. Okay, great. And so then that's where we can talk about it and then potentially propose some language for that, or is that too quickly? So I'm seeing some heads shaking in opposite directions.
I mean, I think it depends on how much work we think it will take into it.
I think, well, talking about work plan is talking about what to prioritize, not
Right.
working on the work plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so, because I'm just trying to understand the context of how deliberate this will be. So it sounds like the first stage of the conversation is we have the whole list, we prioritize, and then we will figure out what kind of work effort it's going to take on the things we have prioritized. And then from that prioritization, we will begin the process of working through that. That does not specifically, it does not say how specific we can get between those 2 points, because if in the working plan conversation, this doesn't come up, then my next question, just to telegraph, is how can we get it higher? And it's not to say to do away with the work plan process, it's just to understand, like, is it because it requires so much staff time? And it's something we could ask the university, like, or a planning class to do as a project for us and bring back that language. So I'm just trying to understand how to approach it. And because we're a slow-moving body, it just takes weeks to process some of that. And since we're all here, and I feel like some of you have answers, you could just say, it's not likely that this is going to come up in the next 3 months, but we will put it on the list, we will talk about it, and then we'll see where we are. Does that make,
Yeah, I think we should all look at the many things that we've put before that have
Okay.
been proffered for that work plan. The whole goal of that as so that we we can discuss what the priorities are and rank them, because
Okay.
this is my sense is to direct both, it's really to help staff understand what our priorities are for their assistance in this. So if there's something that doesn't make the higher priority, there can be other avenues, though ultimately at the end of the day, all of the things, no matter where they come, like if it's an ordinance change, it comes to our whole body, right? And so, I would say next week we'll have a better sense of how all of us feel about what the collective priorities are, because there's a bunch of things.
okay, thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Commission proposed business. That's what this section is. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Gibrandl. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is all the hands. Have a good night.